All right, so we're recording. So this is our discussion for week one. The question is, what do you see as additional advantages of the youth ministry giving a third of its time to impact families and a third of its time to connect to the church? So Matt, if you want to start, we'll start with you, my man.
Yeah, I think it's significantly important to connect with the families, because without having the family involved and the youth, the church isn't doing its job. The church is all about family. So if we're not working with a family and helping them to grow their youth relationship with Christ and their engagement in the church, then the church as a whole isn't going to continue to grow. As time goes on, that child will begin to step away from the church, and likelihood will probably get lost in the world in some ways, or stumble more. But the more that the church is involved in helping the family grow together, not only as a family, as a whole family, but also as a Christ-centered family, the more likely that those children will continue to grow in their relationship with Christ.
Absolutely.
So I think it's a very important thing for youth ministry, student ministry, for them to get the family of children involved and help the dads and moms learn how to disciple their kids.
Cool. Grace, what about you?
So I agree, because the church is like a family, so family is like the core element of a church. So if we don't focus on the family, our presentation of the gospel and the power of it is limited. So I think focusing on the family ministry and just incorporate youth ministry with the church is good for avoiding the segregation of the church, and to let people really have fellowship and to learn from the families. Because for me personally, if we go into a family and see how they interact with each other, I think itself is a gospel presentation, like how the husband treats the wife, how the parents treat their kids, and how the kids respond to their parents. All our relationship is related to the gospel. So I definitely think it's a core ministry, and it should be focused more in our churches. And our churches are currently doing some changes to focus more on the family and the church as a whole. So I definitely already see the benefits of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And to piggyback off both of you guys, I mentioned this in our main discussion, and just because it's kind of a heartthrob to my ministry, I believe it's biblical. I believe one of the advantages to focusing on families is that it's biblical. We see in Psalm 145:4, one generation shall praise your works to another and shall declare your mighty works. And we see this over and over, where the generations, God uses people, and therefore the generations of people, to communicate His gospel, to communicate His truth, to share what God's done in our lives and in our world to others. And I believe if we just focus as student pastors, if we fall into the trap of just focusing on students, we're just focused on one generation. We're not focused on multiple generations. And God's concern is for all people of all nations. Therefore, it's of all generations, of all nations, of all parts of the earth. And so we shouldn't get to a point, kind of what we were talking about, where we're siloing ourselves off and locking ourselves in, and locking ourselves into, doing one thing or ministering to one person or one type of person. So I think, again, one of the advantages is that it's biblical. And secondly, I believe that it's beneficial as a whole, and just all together. And so I lost my train of thought there for a second. But anyway, again, I just think one of the number one benefits is that, or advantages rather, is that it's biblical. So anyway, so this is week one discussion, and I'm going to stop real quick.